Houston Strickland versus Hernandez is over, and today I'm going to be recapping the event and talking about what is next for each of the key fighters involved. Now overall, this was a pretty good card, largely carried by the top three fights. We had Sean Strickland shut down Ante Hernandez, pulling off the upset. We had Melquizael Costa finish Dan Ige for the first time in his career with a spinning kick to the head, Justin Gaethje versus Max Holloway style. We had Uros Medic flatline Geoff Neal in the first round, pulling off some fucking aura farming afterwards. We had Ante Delija get shut down by Serghei Spivac, who ended up looking like a top-level fucking boxer. What's going on with Ante Delija? Anyway, it's heavyweight, but it was an actual exciting heavyweight fight, which we don't get very often. So we're going to move on. We got Carlos Leal, who beat Chidi Njokuani, who was just relentless the whole time. Now, some people thought that Chidi Njokuani won the fight against Carlos Leal. I don't know. I think it was really, really close, but I think Carlos Leal edged it. We had Josiah Harrell get sent to the shadow realm with some crazy ground and pound at the hands of Jacobe Smith. We saw Libby Idris get a win over Ode Osborne in a very Marab-esque way. And we also saw John Paul Lebosniani beat Phil Rowe over 3 rounds, implementing his grappling skills, coming away with the win. Now the question that we're going to be asking today is what is next for the key fighters involved, and we're going to waste no time. We're going to jump straight into the main event winner. Here's the fucking thing, you guys. Anthony Fluffy Hernandez is a fucking savage, man. This man is everything that I desire to be. Some real kind words from Sean Strickland following his fight against Ante Hernandez. He beat him in round 3, TKO'd him in round 3, and let me just say, if any of you guys had Sean Strickland to win over 2.5 rounds, god damn, boy, you were 7 seconds off. I had that bet locked in. That was me. I am cooked. Anyway, we're not going to dwell. Sean Strickland beat Ante Hernandez as a very big underdog. And for the majority of the fight, Ante Hernandez was walking down Sean Strickland, which in most cases people might think, oh, he was winning the fight. But he was just not landing anything. And Sean Strickland was landing the jab. He was landing his kicks to the body. He didn't throw as many teeps as I thought he would do. But it didn't matter because he landed enough kicks to the body to finally get the crushing knee to the body on Ante Hernandez that ended up finishing the fight, getting Sean Strickland in another situation where he's counted out and he comes back and he causes damage and gets the upset. Cinema for Sean Strickland, and now we are probably most likely going to get Strickland versus Khamzat Chimaev for the middleweight belt. Now, I don't want to hear anything about Khamzat Chimaev moving up to 205 facing Yuri Prochazka. I did a post about this just yesterday. Already got like 150 comments of people going, Khamzat Chimaev is the champion. He does whatever he wants. No, he doesn't. Dana even said in the post-fight press conference, that is not happening. So all of you guys that have been yapping, shut up. And it's not my boys on here because I know that you aren't carrying that mentality. Khamzat Chimaev is not moving up to 205. He's staying at middleweight and he is going to be fighting Sean Strickland. It makes sense. In reality, it's either Sean Strickland or Nassourdine Imavov, and Sean Strickland has a win over Nassourdine Imavov. And we've also had Imavov going, I don't want to fight my Muslim brother. Alright, why the fuck did you get into this sport if we're not going to dwell? The fight to make is Sean Strickland versus Khamzat Chimaev. This is a no-brainer to me. They've got beef. They've got drama. We've seen Chimaev tweet back at Sean Strickland saying, I destroyed the guy that beat you twice. You laid on him. You laid on him for 25 minutes. Alright? We're going to be doing Sean Strickland versus Khamzat Chimaev. Khamzat Chimaev has not fought in 6 months. When he fought Dricus du Plessis, he took no damage. Where the fuck is he? I'll tell you where he is. He's nowhere to be seen. We've seen his training videos. We've seen this. We've seen that. Let's see him in the cage. And let's see him in the cage against Sean Strickland. Sean Strickland didn't take much damage against Fluffy Hernandez. Let's run this, and let's run this fast. We're doing Sean Strickland versus Khamzat Chimaev next. And we're going to be moving on to his opponent, Anthony Fluffy Hernandez. Now, Anthony Fluffy Hernandez, as everyone was saying, 8-fight win streak leading into this fight. He was on a tear, destroying everyone. So the question is, following the loss to Sean Strickland, who do we match Fluffy up with? And I think I've got a good enough answer. When we look at the middleweight division, right? It's kind of busy. A lot of the guys are matched up. Beneath Anthony Hernandez, we've got Brendan Allen, seen that. Don't need to see that again. We've got Israel Adesanya, matched up with Joe Pyfer. We've got Cal Braulio and Reina Derrida, they're matched up. So in ranked 9th, which is kind of the most viable option, and I know he's coming off of a 2-fight losing streak against Reina Derrida, against Khamzat Chimaev. It just makes sense to me that we match Fluffy up with Bobby fucking Knuckles, mate. A lot of people might be jumping on me here and going, what? This makes no sense. Robert Whittaker's ranked 9th and he's on a 2-fight losing streak. Who the fuck else are you going to match Fluffy up with at this stage? Roman Dolidze? Jared Cannonier? Because they're both coming off fucking losses as well. And the rest of the ranked guys at middleweight, you got Gregory Rodriguez matched up against Bruno Ferreira, Joe Pyfer matched up against Israel Adesanya, and Bruno Ferreira, who I've just said, he's matched up against Robocop. So in my eyes, there's no other option here. Why are we not doing Fluffy Hernandez versus Robert Whittaker? I think that's the next fight to make. I don't think there's anything else to really say on this. Divisional-wise, he seems like the only other option. We're going to be doing Fluffy Hernandez versus Robert Whittaker. Another big test for Fluffy Hernandez. And if he passes it, then he's right back into the mix. I really like this fight. We're going to be doing Fluffy Hernandez versus Robert Whittaker. Moving on, we've got Uros Medic, and god damn, boy! Uros Medic flatlines Geoff Neal in round 1, literally beating the snot out of him. I don't know if you saw the replay of Geoff Neal when he fell back, he went boof, and a big old loogie came out of his nose and just went fucking everywhere, which is just lovely to see in slow motion. And Uros Medic, as I said in my previous video where I was talking about most to lose, most to gain, UFC Houston edition, I was saying that with a win, Uros Medic is in a very, very good spot here, right? And he's kind of done the work for me here, because in his post-fight interview, he called out Leon Rocky Edwards, and that is the fight. I think that's the fight to go with. You know what I mean? Leon Edwards is ranked 8th, but he is also on a 3-fight losing streak. And now Uros Medic has cracked the rankings. He's not going to be facing Colby Covington because you can't get a hold of that guy. Michael Venom Page is matched up. D-Rod hasn't been around for fucking ages. Are we going to throw him against Uros Medic? I don't know. Maybe. That's another option. Geoff Neal just got slimed out. Gilbert Burns, Gabriel Bonfim, Joaquin Buckley, just been matched up against Sean Brady. So the next one is Leon Edwards. Leon Edwards, time to prove yourself against the prospect. You know what I mean? You fought Carlos Prates, you fought Sean Brady, you fought Bilal Muhammad, you fought the top guys in the division, and you haven't lived up to those standards. So now, guess what? You can have a prospect. You can try and prove yourself against one of the up-and-coming guys in the division, and that guy is Uros Medic. This makes sense to me. The call-out was there. Incredible post-fight speech, by the way. Uros Medic on the mic. God damn. I don't care if I get knocked the fuck out, but I'm coming back, and I will knock everyone out. Bit of an oxymoron there, but Uros Medic's post-fight speech, pretty cool. And he also said that he was having difficulty with travel, although following the fight, he put up on his Instagram that he had just got off the phone with Donald Trump, that everything was all good, right? So Uros Medic is a free man, and he's a free man to fight Leon Edwards. Leon Edwards versus Uros Medic is going to be the next matchup. This makes sense, right? And we move on to Geoff Neal. Now, Geoff Neal, this is a really sad one because the whole storyline with Geoff Neal leading up to fight week was the fact that he had previously been dealing with some pretty serious substance abuse, alcoholism, etc. And the fact that he had called this the rebirth. And we're going to get on to Brian Ortega in a minute, but just give me a minute. And as I said, Geoff Neal turned a new leaf. He's fixed himself up. He's on a new and improved path. And then what happens? He gets slimed out badly. And that is 2 in a row now. Carlos Prates. Boom! Spinning elbow. Uros Medic. Boom! Right hand in the clinch. Knocks the snot out of him. So it's pretty tough for Geoff Neal. It's a pretty tough time for Geoff Neal. However, I don't want to specifically just nuke him from the rankings at this stage. Geoff Neal's put in enough body of work at this stage to still be able to float around in the rankings. And I'm saying this kind of on a whim because 2 flatlines, maybe you're out, maybe you have to work your way back in, but I don't really want to do that at this stage, right? I think, I mentioned him a minute ago, I think the perfect matchup for Geoff Neal, as of right now, and I know that he's probably going to drop below him in the rankings because it is literally, Geoff Neal is 12 and this guy is 13. So we'll see what happens come Monday, but I really like Geoff Neal versus Daniel Rodriguez. I think that's a great matchup. 2 old dudes, 2 unks, throwing it down. Daniel Rodriguez is on a win streak at the moment. Just beat Kevin Holland. Before that, beat Santiago Ponzinibbio. Before that, beat Alex Morono. So he's on a win streak. However, as I said, at the moment, welterweight is looking a little bit booked up. So I just say we do Geoff Neal versus Daniel Rodriguez. A striker's delight, a boxer's delight, some may say. And then if Geoff Neal loses this one, then he's out of the rankings. And that would be fair, in my opinion. I think this is going to be a real emotional loss for Geoff Neal here. Obviously following turning his life around and then still getting KO'd in brutal fashion against a guy that arguably didn't deserve it. So we're going to give him a shot of redemption and we're going to be matching him up with Daniel Rodriguez. I think this is a good fight. As I said, striker's delight. This is a guaranteed scrap to put on the main card of some pay-per-view. I know we don't do pay-per-views anymore, but I'm still saying it because the fuck else are we going to say? Geoff Neal versus Daniel Rodriguez is ultimately going to be the matchup that is next for Geoff Neal, in my opinion. So we're going to do that. And we're going to move straight on to the man of the fucking event. Maybe not. But Melquizael Costa is now on a 6-fight win streak. And he had one of the best years last year out of any other UFC fighter. He comes into this fight and he finishes Dan Ige with a spinning kick to the dome. As I said in the start of the video, very similar to how Max Holloway landed on Justin Gaethje that broke his nose when they fought at UFC 300. But ultimately, Dan Ige succumbed to this. He dropped down, and then Costa jumped on him and got the TKO win. And this is a massive statement, especially in the featherweight division. Melquizael Costa really has a chance to become Breakthrough Fighter of the Year 2026, and I'm saying that with confidence, just because of how he's just dismantled Dan Ige for the first time in his career. Dude. It's crazy. It was such an insane performance, and this guy's stock has risen massively, massively, massively. So you know what? Who are we going to match him up with? We're going to be matching him up with our boy, Brian Ortega. And you know what? I think Brian Ortega has had too much Dana White privilege in the UFC so far. You know what I mean? Fought Aljamain Sterling in his last fight, lost. Fought Diego Lopez in the fight before, lost. He did beat Yair Rodriguez before that, but then before that, he lost. I mean, it was a controversial stoppage, so we're not really going to look too much into that. Before that, fought Volk. Before that, fought Chan Sung Jung. Before that, fought Max Holloway. Then Frankie Edgar. You know what I mean? Brian Ortega's been fighting every single one at the top of the division. So in similar fashion to Leon Edwards, we're going to be matching him up with a prospect, and we're going to be matching him up with Melquizael Costa. Brian Ortega is currently ranked 10th in the featherweight division, but as I said, he's on a 2-fight losing streak. Melquizael Costa is about to break into the rankings, so I say we do Melquizael Costa versus Brian Ortega. Seems like a pretty decent stylistic matchup. This is a real fun one. I think the UFC keep matching up certain fighters at the top of the division. And we've been in a bit of a deficit when it comes to prospects versus veterans or people that have been around for a long time. In this card that we've just seen, we have seen that. We saw Geoff Neal versus Uros Medic. We saw Dan Ige versus Melquizael Costa. We have seen Fluffy Hernandez versus Sean Strickland. And I know Fluffy Hernandez is at the top of the division, but we've seen with Costa and Uros Medic that when you match up these veterans with decorated UFC careers against these prospects, we get exciting outcomes and we get shifts in the division. And I think that is exactly what we need in featherweight. So we're going to be doing Melquizael Costa versus Brian Ortega. That is going to be the fight. We're going to be moving on to the next fight, which is Dan Ige. Now, Dan Ige, as I said, just got completely slimed out by Melquizael Costa. Pretty rough, right? And I think at this stage, we're going to see Dan Ige out of the rankings for the first time in a long time. So we are not going to be matching Dan Ige up with a ranked featherweight here. And we're going to be looking at the unranked featherweights that deserve to get a crack at the rankings. Now, in my opinion, when we look into those guys, there's one name that kind of screams out to me personally. And that name is Myron Santos. Now, Myron Santos is currently 4-0 in the UFC. Proving himself against a lot of the guys. Just come off of a 3rd round finish against Muhammad Naimov, where he TKO'd him. Before that, he beat Sadiq Youssef. Not everyone gave him that fight, but on his record, he beat Sadiq Youssef. And then before that, he has wins over Francis Marshall and Khan Offley. Now, as I said, 4-0 in the UFC in the featherweight division. Myron Santos deserves a crack at the featherweight rankings. Are we going to match him up against a ranked person? No. What we are going to do is we're going to match him up against someone who is fresh out of the rankings. Dan Ige has the opportunity to get some momentum back against a lower ranked opponent. And Myron Santos gets the opportunity to prove if he's ranked worthy. This is going to be a Paramount Plus friendly matchup because it's going to be on the feet. And we very well might see a KO. But I think in terms of storylines, this makes sense. As I said, Dan Ige, prove yourself. Myron Santos, are you good enough to float with the fucking big dogs? We'll see. When you face Dan Ige. Dan Ige versus Myron Santos is going to be the next fight. And we're going to be moving on to Serghei Spivac. Looked like a fucking animal against Ante Delija. An absolute animal. Ante's good. Ante's good. Not good enough against Spivac, but it's what it is. Serghei Spivac Now, Serghei Spivac is back in the win column after losing to Waldo Cortez Acosta last year. And when we look at the heavyweight division, Serghei Spivac is currently ranked 7th. And above him, we've got Rizvan Kuniev, Waldo Cortez Acosta, Curtis Blades, Sergey Pavlovich, Alexander Volkov, Cyril Gane, and obviously at the top, we've got Tom Aspinall. Now, who should we match Serghei Spivac with? That is the question. Definitely not Waldo Cortez Acosta. We know how that went. Curtis Blades is on a win streak. He's going to be fighting up. Sergey Pavlovich is on a win streak. He's going to be fighting up. Alexander Volkov has just lost to Jelton Almeida, but he's ranked 2. And I cannot justify doing ranked 7th Serghei Spivac against Alexander Volkov at this stage. And obviously, we know that Cyril Gane is probably either going to get Alex Pereira at heavyweight or the rematch against Tom Aspinall. So I see no other option than to do Serghei Spivac versus Rizvan Kuniev. Now, Rizvan Kuniev, 1-1 in the UFC, lost to Curtis Blades, beat Jelton Almeida in one of the most boring fights I've ever seen in my entire fucking life. And I mentioned in a previous video that Rizvan Kuniev is in a spot where it's really difficult to place him when it comes to matchmaking in the heavyweight division, obviously because of the fact that he came in and fought Curtis Blades straight away, and he doesn't really have anything else to show for himself. Obviously, he's just beaten Jelton Almeida, but prior to that, it was just Curtis Blades and then fucking Contender Series and PFL, where he was juicing up. So it's difficult to place him in the heavyweight division when it comes to matchmaking, as I said. So I think Serghei Spivac winning kind of works perfectly with this situation. And I would have also said Ante Delija if he won exactly the same fight. So this is overall good for the heavyweight division. I know I'm saying that in Big 2026. It's kind of crazy. But anyway, we will move with it. Serghei Spivac versus Rizvan Kuniev. I've gone through the heavyweight division and I've kind of said the situation on it. None of the other guys are really in a position that they should be fighting Serghei Spivac at this stage. And for all the other guys, we kind of know how that one's going to go anyway. So Serghei Spivac versus Rizvan Kuniev is probably going to be the matchup. And believe it or not, 2026 Serghei Spivac is not the same Serghei Spivac that we all know and hate. This guy seems to be improving his speed in boxing as well. This guy is pushing pressure. And Rizvan Kuniev, a guy that has been shown, maybe not in the Curtis Blades fight, but definitely in the Jelton Almeida fight, that he can get lulled into a boring fight. Now, I don't personally think Serghei Spivac is going to get him into that situation. So Serghei Spivac versus Rizvan Kuniev is probably going to be one of the rare, exciting matchups at heavyweight. I don't know. This could age terribly. You never know. But Serghei Spivac versus Rizvan Kuniev makes sense to me. Serghei Spivac versus Rizvan Kuniev... We're going to get our words right. Serghei Spivac versus Rizvan Kuniev is going to be the fight that we're going to be going for next. We're not going to waste any more time on this because why would we? It's heavyweight. As I say that, we're going to be moving on to the next heavyweight fight, which is Ante Delija. Now, Ante Delija, dude, some people said Delija should have won the fight last night. I don't know. What I do know is that now Ante Delija is on a 2-fight losing streak. Lost to Waldo Cortez Acosta. Now he's just lost to Serghei Spivac. So what do we do with him? I know, but what do you think we should do with him? Let me know in the comments before I click on the next side. If you do, pause it, go down, say what you think. But in my personal opinion, I think this makes perfect sense, and this is my perfect opportunity to fucking lay down the law on another boring-ass fighter that is going to be forced to exchange because Ante Delija goes for it. And someone that he is going to be pushing the pace against is Thaleson Teixeira. Thaleson Teixeira, you're up, buddy. How's that chin doing? Because we very may well see it in the fucking nosebleeds after your next fight, big man. I'm doing Ante Delija versus Thaleson Teixeira. And this is a pretty banger matchup. I think that there's real big merit in the heavyweight division of matching up a fucking boring guy, maybe who won in boring fashion, against a guy who's just lost his fight, but pushes the pace, pushes the pressure, and has knockout power. I think that's a great combination. And I think that is a formula that we need to start using a bit more in the heavyweight division, sort of mid to low table within the rankings. And on that note, Ante Delija versus Thaleson Teixeira has been incredibly underwhelming. This guy's 6'8". This guy's imposing. This guy's Brazilian. This guy just nearly died when he fought Taito Ivasa. You know what I mean? They were both slumped up against the cage in the last round. The entire of the last round, he camped in fucking full gut. You can try and get your takedowns against Ante Delija, but we've seen against Spivac, this motherfucker gets up. He gets up. And when he gets up, he puts the fucking hands on you. And that is not what Thaleson Teixeira wants. But dude, Thaleson Teixeira is ranked 12th. Ante Delija is currently ranked 9th. It will change by Monday, but boom, you've got 12-9. Coming off of a loss, coming off of a win. Meet in the middle, style clash, Ante Delija versus Talison Teixeira. That is the next matchup at heavyweight that I want to fucking see, dude. We move on to Jacobe Smith. Now, Jacobe Smith, oh, that was brutal. And for anyone saying Jacobe Smith, oh, he shouldn't have landed those shots, Kerry Hatley should have pushed him off way earlier than he did. All right? Especially against the guy who's had a fucking brain operation. Dude, referee, do not act like you're pissed off with Jacobe Smith. Jacobe Smith did nothing wrong. Jacobe Smith did his job. You did not do your job. I don't want to hear anything about Jacobe Smith. Shouldn't have done this. Shut up. Jacobe Smith did what he had to do. And he showed levels against Josiah Harrell. Put the hands on him. Put the wrestling on him. And he did very well, finishing Josiah Harrell in the first round. And you know what? Jacobe Smith, 3-0 in the UFC, 3 finishes. So guess what? Time for the fucking Neil Magny test, boys. It is time for the Neil Magny test. Neil Magny, obviously not ranked in the welterweight division, just lost to Yaroslav Amosov, got submitted, known as the grand gatekeeper in the welterweight division. The Neil Magny test is real, boys. Just like the Dan Ige test is real, and we saw Melquizael Costa pass that with flying colours. Just because of how stacked the welterweight division is, I don't think Jacobe Smith is ready to start moving into the rankings and fighting these ranked guys, because I still think he's got a little bit of growing pains to fill out at the moment. And I think the best opportunity that can arise from this situation with a win over Josiah Harrell, coming off of 3 UFC wins, 3 finishes, go against Neil Magny. Neil Magny has proven in the past, for example, when he fought Mike Malott, for example, when he fought fucking Jake Matthews, he still got it, right? He's still got it. He's just lost to Amosov, but Amosov is looking like a fucking monster in the welterweight division, and we'll see what happens with this guy. Still crazy that he's not ranked. But Neil Magny has the opportunity to get a big name. Who's going to care about watching Neil Magny versus Max Griffin? Who's going to care about watching Neil Magny versus fucking Gunnar Nelson? Who's going to care about watching Neil Magny versus Chaos Williams? Not me. Not the fans, for the most part. So Neil Magny versus Jacobe Smith is kind of a win-win. It is kind of a win-win. Neil Magny gets an opponent that is a very good name. People are going to want to watch. Jacobe Smith gets his opportunity to prove himself also against a big name, a gatekeeper, a staple in the welterweight division for many years now. As I said, dude, it's time for the Neil Magny test. We're not wasting any time on this. Jacobe Smith versus Neil Magny is going to be the matchup that I want to see next for Jacobe Smith. Let's go. And we're going to be moving on. Oh my God, bro. I feel so bad for this because imagine going all in on a career only for it to be the worst case scenario. Now, I don't know too much about brains. I haven't got much of one myself. But what I do know is that if you've had brain surgery and you had brain surgery for a condition that if you were to get hit in the head, take serious head damage, you can have seizures and you can die. What I do know is you're in the wrong line of work, brother. Why are you fighting? And you've just taken an insane amount of damage. Insane. Kerry Hatley, sort yourself out. An insane amount of damage against Jacobe Smith, taking multiple shots on the ground, on his back, whilst he was unconscious. The dude woke up fucking half an hour later and he was still grappling Kerry Hatley in the octagon. This is not good at all. And it's sad because it's like you work your entire life to get to a certain place only for everyone just to go, dude, you should just be cut. But I think he should for health reasons. So Josiah Harrell's next opponent, in my opinion, Josiah Harrell's next opponent, it's the fucking ER. You know what I mean? Send this man back to hospital. He needs to get checked. He probably went to hospital anyway, but dude, it's just fighting is not for you. You're good. You're on a 4-fight win streak outside of the UFC. So I don't know. Like I said, I don't know about brains. I don't know about brains, but I don't think what you took last night was good. Dude, just start fucking going for brand deals on Instagram. Use this product. You know what I'm saying? These are great headphones. Come buy them. 10k, thank you. That would do me for fucking a third of the year. Oh, dude. Josiah Harrell takes incredible damage against Jacobe Smith on his UFC debut, his original UFC debut against JDM. They were going to match him up against JDM. It couldn't have gone worse. Did the UFC just hate this guy? I don't know. Josiah Harrell, you're going to the ER, brother. You're going to stay there. They're going to check you over. They might even offer you a job so you can get the fucking free healthcare. I don't know where to place Josiah Harrell. I don't want to match him up against anyone else. You know what I mean? Fuck it. We'll give him Rafael dos Anjos. No, I'm joking. It's not happening. He's going. Josiah Harrell versus the ER is going to be it. I wish this was a joke. It's not. This guy needs to make sure that he's not in a fucking situation where he's taking a career's worth of head down. Like, what are you going to do? You're going to continue fighting and then just take more fucking... So you're going to speed run CTE whilst you've had a brain aneurysm, requiring brain surgery, that in actual fact only happened because you had the medical checks in the UFC. Could have got worse. Don't know. That ended up getting sorted out. Josiah Harrell... We're not going to be matching you up against anyone, brother. I don't know. Maybe someone down the rankings, but right now I'm not doing that. I just want to see this guy get better, and I want to see this guy not take any cataclysmic, catatonic head damage anymore. Josiah Harrell goes to the ER, brother. See you there. See you in a bit. Moving on. Michel Pereira. So Michel Pereira, in my opinion, robbed Zach Reese last night. Might be because I had Zach Reese in a parlay. Might not be. Allegations. We're not verifying any of that. But Michel Pereira, I said in my previous video, most to win, most to lose. If Michel Pereira beat Zachary Reese, is it that good? I don't know. Personally, coming off a 4-fight losing streak, you know what I mean? It wasn't going good for Michel Pereira. And he's just gone fucking tooth and nail with Zachary Reese in what just seemed like a fucking bloody sparring session. Not a lot of technique for either of them. Both of them got tired. Zachary Reese did the fucking aura farm and when they spit the blood out. And that was one of the most notable moments from the fight. It was a war, but it was just a non-technical war. Neither stock really rose that much based on their previous position before this fight. Now, it easily could have gone either way, in my opinion. But one thing that I know for a fact is Michel Pereira is nowhere near the rankings at middleweight, bro. This guy came into the UFC. Did you guys, when Michel Pereira came into the UFC, the whole hype was, oh my God, have you seen this guy's fucking highlight reel? He does backflips. He runs off the cage. He's doing cartwheels. He's doing capoeira. Do you know what I mean? Now he's not doing any of that shit. And I know he used to gas out. But when he used to win, it used to be early by finish. You know what I'm saying? I don't like this new 3-round fight Pereira. Boring. And it seems like all of a sudden the UFC has introduced 100k bonuses. A lot of the fighters have just gone, fuck it. I don't need to be entertaining. What is that logic about? Michel Pereira, very lackluster fight against Zachary Reese. And I'm a big fan of Zachary Reese, which is probably why I'm seeming a little bit biased here. But Michel Pereira beat him. And that's all there really is to say about the situation. So we need to match Michel Pereira up with another unranked middleweight. Now, who is that middleweight going to be? And I pray to God this isn't a boring fight. I don't think this will be a boring fight. But we're matching Michel Pereira up with Roman Kopylov. Shout out Lucas Tracy. Roman Kopylov versus Michel Pereira. And for this one, I'm looking into Tapology rankings because they obviously rank all the way down to all of the names in the division. Tapology have got Roman Kopylov as ranked 26. And at the stage before the rankings change, they've got Michel Pereira at 34. Michel Pereira obviously just snapped his 3-fight losing streak. I said 4-fight a minute ago. 3-fight. He's just snapped his 3-fight losing streak with a win over Zachary Reese. Roman Kopylov is coming off of 2 losses. Both of them are strikers. Both of them, on their heyday, are entertaining, exciting fighters that will put on bangers. We will not be wasting any time with this. We're going to do Michel Pereira versus Roman Kopylov. Winner gets to fight Bo Nickel. We're doing Michel Pereira versus Roman Kopylov. Not wasting any more time on it. We're going to jump on to the last fighter that we're going to be talking about. My boy, Zachary Reese. Zachary Reese has one of the worst combinations of attributes when it comes to a UFC fighter. He's a reckless striker and he's also chinny. Now, what that means is that you never normally have a boring Zachary Reese fight. It's entertaining. But bad for him is his finish or be finished. I know he's just gone to a decision, but for the most part, Zachary Reese gets into wars, right? So when I'm thinking about who I should be matching up Zachary Reese next, I'm thinking this. I want to match Zachary Reese up with someone relatively close to him in terms of skill and notoriety and entertainment value. But I also want to match him up with someone who has less striking ability, but a better chin. Because I just think, stylistically, that would be great. You'll have Zachary Reese teeing off against someone who's a fucking blockhead, who can take it all, that might swing back and catch Zachary Reese. And if Zachary Reese gets caught, motherfucker's sleeping. He'll be sleeping. And when I'm looking up and down the middleweight names and the middleweight fighters that could fill this space, I noticed one name. And believe it or not, with his last win, he put on an incredible display of himself and his fighting ability, although he did lose. He just fought Michel Pereira. However, as I said, in that fight, he put on an incredible display of himself. Came back in round 3. Pereira was exhausted. He was landing shots on Pereira. It was cinema. And we almost saw a finish. But ultimately, he did lose. And this guy is Marc-Andre Barriault. That was my impression of a Canadian accent. Marc-Andre Barriault. It's French. Strange accent. Anyway, tangent. Fucking crazy tangent. We're going to be doing Marc-Andre Barriault versus Zachary Reese. Tell me that this is not a fucking banger matchup. Tell me this is not a banger matchup. On the side of Marc-Andre Barriault, as I said, blockhead, solid chin. Not the greatest striking ability, but when he locks in, he fucking locks in. Zachary Reese, violent fighter, right? Violent fighter, very good striking ability, great Muay Thai, but chinny as fuck. Let's mix that. Let's just mix it. Stylistically, nowadays, dude, I fall in love with the stylistic aspect of matching fights up, right? I never really used to be that big of a matchmaker guy. Never really thought about it as much. But now, you know what I mean? When I'm looking up and down the rankings, when I'm looking up and down the non-ranking fighters, you see patterns, and some of them are like, oh, let's match him up against him. Let's match Zachary Reese versus Marc-Andre Barriault. Stick it on the prelims of some pay-per-view. Still saying it. Stick it on the prelims of some pay-per-view. And you've got a guaranteed, maybe not guaranteed, but you've got a very high chance of getting a finish. You've got a very high chance of two dudes with fucking ketchup smeared all over their face. And in the Paramount era, shout out Laura Sanko, UFC are prioritizing violence. This is a violent fight. This is a stylistic matchup that works for Paramount, that works for the fans. We ain't gonna be seeing these two dudes fucking laying on each other, camping out in fucking full guard, Taliesin Teixeira, are we? No, we're not. We're gonna see these two guys go out and throw the fucking kitchen sink, the kitchen fucking shelves, the kitchen table, the kitchen chairs, the whole kitchen at each other. It's gonna be cinema. So I think that Zachary Reese versus Marc-Andre Barriault is a fucking no-brainer at this stage. With Zachary Reese coming off of a loss, Marc-Andre Barriault coming off of a loss, you can prove yourself to try and move your way up within the unranked section of the middleweight division, and then angle for a win in your next fight, and then just maybe you can have a little look at rank 15. I don't know. I'm saying, in terms of fighting them. But Zachary Reese versus Marc-Andre Barriault is a banger. Point blank, full stop, period. We're going to be doing that next for both of these guys. And that's going to do it for this video. So let me know who you would match these guys up with. Let me know if I got anything wrong. Let me know how you would change it. I want to hear if you think you've got better matchups to do past this point, because I love having the matchup conversation. But as far as I'm concerned, these are the matchups that I want to see next following UFC Houston, Strickland versus Hernandez. Please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, share the video, hit the bell, do all of that great stuff. It really helps the channel. It really helps push us to the next level. Thank you very much for your time. I hope you have a good weekend, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.